Hey y'all, and welcome back to the Rhythm Section, brought to you by the Mind Refinery. I'm your host, Coburn Blair. This week, Kyle and I are joined by special guest, writer, culture critic, and digital guru, Eric Zaworski. We're talking Daft Punk. The greatest dance act ever calls it quits after 28 years. We hope you enjoy this episode. And if you like what you hear, remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Now, let's get into the show. Here we are on the Rhythm Section. I'm joined by my right hand, the best guy next to me, my co-host, as always, Kyle Bodanis. Kyle, how are you doing?
This is actually very interesting because I've never been in this role as far as this podcast is concerned. I enjoy it, and I'm enjoying it very much. So, no hate here. You're doing good so far. It's been 30 seconds. So fantastic.
So for our listeners, Kyle is now sitting in the chair that I usually sit in. Visually, you'll just have to picture it. I know you can't see it. But we're doing a very special episode on Daft Punk, and we're also joined by a special guest. As seen in the Globe and Mail, Fader, Vice, High Snobiety, we have Eric Zaworski. Eric, how are you doing today?
Not too bad, Coburn. What's going on, man?
Good. I'm good. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, Kyle, what's up?
Hey, what's up, man? I love my intros like Kyle live from his basement. It's like fucking Eric's on all these fucking publications and shit.
Please, I just tacked my name on somewhere.
I mean, what can I say? Are you not in a basement?
It's not a lie. Not a lie.
It'd be like that. Listen.
Yeah, it's real. We're out here.
So today we're talking about Daft Punk, the monumental figures in dance music. We're talking about 4 studio albums from 1997 to 2013, a 28-year run, a Tron soundtrack, and they've recently announced their breakup after 28 years. So it was kind of out of the blue. What do you guys think of it? Do you guys think COVID had any impact on this?
I don't think it did at all. Part of me actually thinks that they wanted to delay it last year, but were probably wrapping things up, or maybe just felt optically and emotionally for their fans and the world it wouldn't have gone over well. But to me, it seems like it was an amicable ending because it was planned and executed in a very Daft Punk way. You know, I mean, they used a clip from Electroma, their indie film, I guess, and sent off, the 2 robots into the sun almost, and kept it very like as the end of a story. So part of me wonders if this was a long time coming, especially given their sparse output, which has more or less always been the case for these for this act. Like they when they release, like their last album was 2013, and I think the rollout must have been a good 5-6 months filled with SNL reveal to they had interviews with all the collaborators. I think they did like 8 episodes, and these guys are like they are like the epitome of like quality in everything that they touch. So I do think that this was a long time coming. And it just came this past Monday.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, first of all, these guys aren't relentless, they're not a relentless touring group. So, you know what I mean? So it's not like any kind of live logistics were completely fucked up by this, you know what I mean? But, I mean, 28 years is a long time to be doing things. And they always, they've always been a group that calls their own shots. And for me, this feels a lot like when the White Stripes hung it up. They're just like, yo, this has run its course. And I respect that. It's hard to do, you know what I mean? How many people hang around where they're not supposed to, you know what I mean? Like, and they just called their shots. But I mean, at this point, look what they've given to us. It's obscene. And, I'm glad they get to go out on their own terms.
Yeah, I think like them kind of splitting up and doing it on their own terms is amicable. And I think it makes a lot of sense. But like, what does it mean to split up when you you don't tour that often and, you're not putting out music?
Yeah, dude, like their last tour was 14 years ago, Live 2007. After that, they played like Coachella the year after, I believe. They had a set with Kanye West at the Grammys 2008, I believe, for graduation. God, what's that song called?
Stronger.
Yeah. God, sorry. These guys, like, I wonder if a tour was planned for Random Access Memories, but given the laundry list of like superstars on that project, it probably either never came to be or maybe it wasn't in the cards at all. And of course, people were thinking, well, okay, there's a Alive 1997, an Alive 2007. There was so much hype built around Alive 2017 becoming a thing that I think when it passed, I mean, myself, I kind of thought, well, anything else we get is gravy. And it would have been nice to see them live. I think that is, for myself, one of the biggest music misses I've ever sadly had in my life. They're definitely one of my favorite acts that I never got to see live. And I'm just praying that they come back somehow, some way. But to be honest, I'm not really holding my breath. I think the way they kind of sent the act off, I think that's kind of the end of the Daft Punk story.
So what album got both of you into Daft Punk, and like where did you get your start?
I mean, for me, it was, the Big City Nights video for Daft Punk. It was all over Much Music, and since I kind of existed at the time with a bunch of music on at all times, I heard it over and over and got it stuck on my head. And then one of my friends' older sisters had the album, and then I got into it. And then, and I kind of got into it at a time, when I really got into it was through homework. Because I feel like Dig Your Own Hole by the Chemical Brothers came out at the same time, and I was like really into that, and it kind of like gatewayed me to the rest of homework and what it is. And at that point in my life, I was like, listening to like Gatecrasher and Ministry of Sound compilations and shit like that. And then Daft Punk completely came into my wheelhouse. And then, of course, they're far more accessible, I think, than any of the other, some of their contemporaries, because like for them it's more like taking all like dance genres and throwing it in a blender. So I mean, Daft Punk and the music video, I mean, top, Spike Jonze as usual, doing awesome shit. And then I mean, the homework, really, the album is what drove it for me. Yeah,
it's a colossal album. It's one of those ones that are kind of on the list of like, if you want to contextualize the 90s here, this is like this has to be included somewhere.
Absolutely.
I think it absolutely put, French house on the map, but more kind of, at least from our venture in North America, legitimized and not legitimized, but like brought house music into places like supermarkets and Walmart and like places where like regular people would go, not just to warehouses. For myself, I remember when I was like 10 years old, I used to go after school to the community center because we didn't have a babysitter, so myself and my brothers would go, and often. And I remember after swimming lessons, One More Time came on the radio, I guess they had playing at the swimming pool. And I remember thinking then, what is this song? This is an amazing song. Sure enough, I heard it on the radio a day later. At this point, it's like 2001. I'm 10 years old, and we always had a computer in my house growing up, and my dad was, we had internet since 1998 type thing. Like, my dad was fairly like, this is the future, this and that, no problem with the kids going on the computer whatsoever. And we had Napster, and I remember asking my dad to download this song for me, and that was something that really brought me into just owning a certain artist or group. I mean, I was into music at this point. I was the youngest kid on a street filled with teenagers, and they put me onto like everything. But that was definitely the one where I felt like I actually discovered them. I mean, never mind the fact that this was like the #1 song of 2001. Yeah. But, just going to Discovery, the music video, seeing a song this kind of captivating with a music video that was like Japanese anime was, for like a nerdy kid like myself, pretty amazing. Because like we kind of take it for granted now that like pop stars, Lil Uzi Vert has tracks about anime. I can't remember the one song. Megan Thee Stallion is like a proud anime fan, so it's kind of nothing. But back in like this time, being into like anime was like, you're a nerd. And it's not good, So to see like a #1 song have a music video and a full-length film, Interstellar 5555, was kind of empowering for a kid just to be like, oh wow, I'm into this and it's good and other people like fuck with it. So yeah, like that just started me into their whole universe, and I'm pretty thankful for that.
So like early on, like on homework, just like re-listening to it recently and reading a lot about Daft Punk, I was reading into Teachers, which pays homage to like early acts like Frankie Knuckles and Juan Atkins, who were pioneers of both Chicago and Detroit house. So Eric, I know did you do an interview with Frankie Knuckles or?
God, I wish, rest in peace. But that would be that song in particular is like a who's who of like house. Like the first, like they call out DJ Funk, DJ Rush, like they call out like 6 Chicago house pioneers in like the first 5 seconds, and it kind of shows like where they're pulling all their influences from, like they even get like some of the Detroit guys, like I think I think like the underground resistance guys get called out, like it's just Dr. Dre is in the house. Like they kind of just paint out this map almost of like, hey, this is the forest with which our music walks through. And the song is called Teachers, and they had the 2 kind of competing vocal tracks, very low bass, very high, and it's almost as if they're like it's like a who's who, it's like a rep track, but it's house.
It's like they were calling out like house luminaries before like James Murphy and LCD Sound System were even thinking about doing that. I friggin' love it. I think like it's hard for us, especially genre dance music, to kind of be aware and maintain like their musical lineage, because like I feel like a lot of it is based on like what club were you at, what residency were you watching, what parties were you at, and a lot of it is very anecdotal, which I think is also something that is amazing about it. And I just don't think it has the same way of like preserving itself, like, like obviously like pop music, rock music, whatever. But I mean, I really love how Teachers does that, right? It's like it carries on this like, it's like this storytelling tradition. It kind of carries on, and like shouting out like the roots of where they come from, and like they're unabashed about loving and respecting these people.
Yeah, and they call it like Romanthony, who later sings One More Time. It's just a like it's and this is back in 97, like a lot of these guys like put out music on vinyl only, like we're talking like white label 45s type thing. You had to know where to buy them. You could only hear them in the club. There was no Spotify. So it was a different world for all intents and purposes. And, to be clear, like this is very much like protest other music. Like Chicago house was it was called underground, and it's a very literal description.
How do you think house music kind of translates now, like in this, DSP kind of microwave music era?
Oh, Jesus. I don't know. I think well, now it's accepted, and now you hear house music in the supermarket, whereas like before, like, and Daft Punk, to be clear, had a lot to do with that, whereas before the kind of machinations that would have pulled it to pop just simply didn't exist. It was actually on the contrary, like house was pulling pop, not the other way around. Now it's very much an accepted style of music that you might hear on Top 40 no problem type thing. With regards to like how the music lives today, it's just totally different. I mean, especially after the fact there hasn't been a dance floor in North America in the last year almost. So it's definitely a different world for that kind of music to thrive.
Like now it's so rooted in the mainstream, you know what I mean? Like, okay, so when Kaytranada dropped 99.9, like that's a very heavily house influenced album. I mean, it was on the top, it was like in the top 10 in a lot of like the year end stuff. And I feel like normally, like back in the day, an album like that came out wouldn't have gotten that kind of attention. And I think that Daft Punk is absolutely part of bringing that. And you know what I mean? And like, I think what Daft Punk did was they interpreted and kind of curated the experience of genre dance music and brought it to the masses, house being like kind of the biggest recipient of that. And now like house style beats is like incorporated into hip hop, it's incorporated into like normal, you know what I mean, like standard, you know, standard pop music. Like, and I mean, you've had a lot of artists add that and like try to do that. I mean, like Primal Scream with Screamadelica and like Andrew Weatherall fucking producing it, you know what I mean, brought acid house to the masses. But Daft Punk has curated this experience and brought it to the popular music lexicon. And I think now house, I mean, if this had happened before in more of house's like infancy, like it wouldn't have survived really as a musical form. But now people are just listening to it. There's DSPs, like it's preserved and it's like a fundamental part of really popular music if you like really break it down.
Yeah, I think like, you know, house lends itself so well, and I think it's also a genre that for me, I think it's best enjoyed on a dance floor or at a rave or at a club, because it's such like it works really well in big rooms. I love it in the company of other people.
Yeah, you don't own the speakers it's designed for.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like I'll never have a good enough sound system at home to really hear all the intricacies of my favorite house records. And just like I love hearing DJs play it too, because the blending, you know, changes everything. Like Eric, I think you sent me like this BBC radio mix of Daft Punk earlier today, and I was just listening to that, and I just thought,
they're
like,
essential mix, and these guys are pros, man. Like that's a Thomas Bangalter and Guy Manuel, like they are like performers, and it's crazy because it's like they put a live album out after their first album. That seldom happens even today, you know, but you know, Alive 1997 is a fucking like full recording of like a set of theirs, and they pressed it back then. It's one
of the greatest live albums of all time. I truly believe that.
It's a substantially important demonstration of the breadth and depth that they were working with then, and they just doubled down on it with Alive 2007, which is an absolute like must listen album. Because it just shows how like they basically kind of destroy and rebuild their tracks in front of like 10,000 people on a tour, and it's all plugged into an Ableton powered pyramid. Like you can't even it doesn't even sound like it should exist, and yet it does.
I mean, I was at the Live 2007. Like, I was there. God. I was at Arrow Hall. It was fucking fan. Like, it was really good. I mean, I remember like early DJ sets I had seen, like with Carl Cox. He's spinning with 5 tables and shit like that, and it's just this really kind of cool situation. But they absolutely blew me away, and
I'm extremely jealous.
Yes, that was a crazy year for me too, because it was like I saw them, Beastie Boys, The Cure, and Mars Volta all. I think it was like within 6 months of each other during first year, which was like a drug-addled haze. But like, you know what I mean? Like just seeing the way they do things and like just improvising on the fly as well. It's I feel like they're almost like these museum curators of dance music, and like them being gone now, I always wonder who is replacing that. You know what I mean?
How do you think like their showmanship contributed to their success and to their mystique? Like, you know, from everything from the helmets to the way they did their live shows to their video. I think these are all just like such big elements of like, you know, you see them parodied in like a cartoon or on TV or something like that, and you know who they're talking about. You know what they're trying to reference there.
Yeah, didn't like a Family Guy make fun of them or something? But
yeah, I think like Family Guy. I feel like they've been on like every major kind of thing like that.
Sure. Yeah, it's a, you know, they bought into the like they weren't always robots. When Homer came out, you know, they were just some like French kids. But I think they saw early that like we would rather make it be about the music, and just elevating that platform of the artistry is something we see pretty often now. I think guys like The Weeknd absolutely took cues from, you know, Daft Punk's commitment to like the act that they were playing. Like it's bigger than the actual people in the band or group, let's say. It's like we are like Daft Punk is separate almost, and it's a project. And I do think that, you know, that absolutely did add to the allure and mystique of you know, their name and who they were, because a lot of people's introduction, I think, to Daft Punk wasn't necessarily from a house like party, or like going to hear a DJ spin their track. It was from the radio. And to be clear, like the fact that they would come out the gate with like a Spike Jonze directed music video in '97, Defunk, like this is back when Spike Jonze was like the big music video guy, right? Like he was doing like Bjork and whatnot. Like it's a pretty big, like, you're on the map now. And their music videos have always been like, it's not really about us type thing. I love Revolution 909, the music video. It's like the whole premise is like cops break up a party, they stop a girl running out from the like the club, and the girl looks down at the cop's dress shirt, and he has like a stain that looks like blood. And then it just plays out this sequence of it actually ending up being spaghetti that like the cop's mother made him for lunch. And it's just such a like lighthearted, fun, but also like kind of playing into like what this music was and what this scene was and what like where it kind of came from. And I love that like these guys like never took themselves quite too seriously. And honestly, I do think that plays into the fact that they never were photographed, almost never, outside of their robot costumes.
Okay, so you have Spike Jonze doing Daft Punk, and then I'm pretty sure Around the World was directed by Michel Gondry.
I think you're right.
Yeah, so like that's what you're coming out with. You're like you're throwing heat right away. Yeah, no, it's incredible. Like I saw Underworld and the Chemical Brothers live, and it's not even close. Like in terms of the ability to translate, a quote unquote electronic music like that to the big stage. Like the way they were able to do that was fantastic, because at the end of the day, especially on that tour, that like it's really a DJ set. Like if you break it down to brass tacks here, like just what they were able to do was incredible. And the show, for never for a minute are you taking your eyes off the stage and what's going on. It's just fully integrated. You know what I mean? They just did so well with it, and it's literally one of the biggest spectacles I've ever seen. And it was only at Arrow Hall, not the greatest venue, but still amazing.
Yeah, I was supposed to go to that show. I'll tell you a story. My biggest is probably my biggest regret of my life. I was supposed to go to this show with a friend from high school. I won't say her name, but my first girlfriend wouldn't let me go because she was jealous that I was like like one of my closest friends in high school was a girl. And I listened to her. We had tickets and everything, and it remains my biggest regret ever. I still kick myself and I shake my head at doing that. But yeah, dude, like I think their live is just so, it's a shame it didn't happen again. And I do think, their Grammy performance with Kanye really solidified their position within the greater context of pop music.
Before we get to the Grammy show with Kanye in 2008, is that the
I
one
believe 2008, yeah.
2008, yeah. Or so just after that we have San Diego Comic-Con in 2009, and they get announced to do 24 new tracks for the film Tron Legacy. So they ended up scoring the whole film, which was a huge career moment for them, right? It's a Disney-owned property. What did you guys think about that soundtrack and that angle for them?
The movie is a hot mess, obviously.
Yeah, the movie sucks.
There's nothing to really to argue about there. But the soundtrack is incredible. It's like there's a period in my life where if I'm doing work and I just need something to listen to, that is what I'm listening to every single time. When I was hosting like Rooms and Rainbow, not what game was. I'm trying to remember what game it was. I was hosting Rooms. Like the end credit music on that would always be like when the like match was over music I would put in, and it was just, I don't know, it was just like a real experience. And listen, I'm going to take music from them in whatever way possible, right? So like if there's like 50 Shades of Grey soundtrack by Daft Punk, I'm going to listen to it, because it's going to be there's going to be a level of quality and a level of just head bobbing goodness that you're going to be able to like embrace from it. So in wrapping up my opinions on it, Tron Legacy, terrible. I loved the soundtrack. Some people didn't like it. I don't like those people anyways.
Yeah, like I don't even think I remember. I know I saw the film. I don't remember anything about it. But yeah, the soundtrack's incredible. That was 2010, so that was University. And yeah, it was just great background music. still is, you know. Definitely not one of my most played like Daft Punk projects. Like it's all just like instrumental and, you know, very clearly a movie soundtrack. But yeah, like it really did I'm sure they got the bag for that, you know, like Disney, this was the Tron reboot. It was like a yeah, like a big ascension for sure.
So people are begging for another Tron. Do you think that they would return to the soundtrack if that kind of happened?
Are people begging for another Tron?
But hey, man, people want Tron. People love Tron.
Who are these people?
Like,
Just get them on the phone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what nether region of Reddit you're going to, but like, okay, I don't understand why. I'm gonna listen to it if it comes out. Continue.
So in 2006, I believe, Montreal native A-Track, he introduces Kanye West to Daft Punk's music, and they become semi-frequent collaborators. How do we think singles like Stronger or their later work on Yeezus affected Kanye's trajectory?
There's an alternate reality where Kanye just doubled down on Yeezus and brought a synth and 808 heavy Gesaffelstein, Hudson Mohawk, Daft Punk powered pop trajectory to the world, and he just remained there forever. Of course, that's not how the story of Kanye and hip hop went. Yeezus was a very obviously polarizing album for Kanye. It was somewhat, I would say it was a departure for sure, especially when you compare it to previous mainline Kanye albums like Graduation and things. However, it is by far my favorite Kanye West album, and I think a lot of that comes with the experimentation and the fact that you had people like Daft Punk throwing drums on, you know, protest tracks like Black Skinhead, Send It Up. God, imagine having an underground mixtape rapper, King Louis, rapping over Daft Punk. No one else but Kanye would have been able to do that shit in 2013, and he did it, and it's amazing. I think that really speaks to the universality, probably not a word, but the just kind of the accessibility of what Daft Punk has been playing with from time. You know, it's no surprise to me that they would find each other in a creative space. Obviously Stronger was the big Kanye West injected flip on Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, but I really think Yeezus is going to be looked back on as a pretty amazing project to come out of, at the time, the biggest rapper.
I think that's really well said. I think Yeezus is absolutely fantastic. It's his punk album. I
1000%.
love it. I love it very much. I think what the big thing is that Stronger and the collaboration with Daft Punk is part of like the expansion of Kanye West into like rapper to pop artist. And I also think like that collaboration kind of sows the seeds of what we're going to hear music is like, you know, how it is today. Because, you know what I mean? Like moving electronic music really into as part of the mainstream, you know, musical vocabulary. I think it opened up new worlds for Kanye West because like the application of it on Stronger is vastly different from the it is on Yeezus, whereas Yeezus it's more the dark Gesaffelstein style, but whereas Stronger is like this big anthemic stadium pop song.
Yeah, it's the Shutter Shades Kanye.
100%. That's the Shutter Shades Kanye. I saw him perform it on stage at friggin' what's it called, at Lollapalooza in 2008, which was low-key one of the best lineups I've ever seen in my life. It just took him to another place, and I think really if you look at his trajectory, you know, this is one of the moments and this is one of the collaborations I would say with him and especially like John Bryan that takes him into another like level and another area of, you know, like sonic possibilities.
And the fact that like Ye started out the album with like On Site, which sounds like fucking like rolling and scratching. Like it sounds like we're gonna throw a synth on a brick wall and see what comes out. Yes,
that is a really good comparison.
It's like a deliberately jarring introduction to an album that is jarring.
That's my favorite like opening 3 Kanye tracks on his albums. Like I would say Late Registration is my favorite album by him. I'm as a result of that, I'm a little bit more of a, classicist. But the first 3 tracks on Yeezus, it punches you in the face right away. It comes out hard. Like it very much is like a thesis statement for what the rest of what you're gonna hear.
Did anybody here play DJ Hero?
No,
I've not played DJ Hero. I played Guitar Hero a bunch when it came out.
Because I remember just when Daft Punk, became playable characters in that game, and they produced some original tracks for that, which I thought was, another foray, of them in the mainstream. Because I feel like they are an act that, like, even their logo or their iconography is like very, like, I've seen it like replicated. It's one of those band logos that like I've recognized from lockers and gym and like clubs and bars and stuff like that. Like it's a sticker that I've seen a lot of places. So then them kind of having these splashes with the mainstream, but also they've always managed their mystique very well. They've always been there and been worth mentioning and worth talking about. But it's such a concerted run of like doing 4 albums and a soundtrack over that time period, or and the 2 live projects. I think it's just like, it's kind of mind-boggling to me that they had such a limited touring run, such a limited album run, and still have this like complete stranglehold because nobody has really kind of come close to their accomplishments.
Yeah, like these guys are definitely the type of people who make music constantly. Whether we hear it or not is another story. And I think that's for the better. It's very antithetical to the world with which we live today for music. But I do think that has elements of what makes what will make their legacy so special. Every single project they put out is worth at least one spin. You can't say that about very many artists, period.
So the last 2 albums I feel like have been kind of maligned in by a lot of listeners and fans and stuff like that. How do we feel about 2005's Human After All?
So I went into looking at like old stuff, and I had like a live journal back then.
Yes.
And I wrote a review. Even back then I knew I wanted to share my opinions with the internet. And I actually wrote that I didn't like it all that much, even though I played the shit out of Discovery. I remember thinking, oh, this sounds very repetitive, even though one could argue, Homework with the 9-minute songs like Rollin' and Scratch and whatnot also being repetitive. This one I felt was almost like a kind of like a digital, let's say, experimentation of some of the magic that was going on in Homework. And it's still a fantastic album. I do seem to recall back then, Technologic being a big deal, especially when Busta Rhymes and Missy Elliott came out and flipped it and had like a remix and everything.
Yeah,
and,
that song was huge.
That was a big song in like high school, from what I remember, and that was like, oh wow, like rappers are singing the chorus of like a French house duo. Like it's like, okay, Daft Punk's here, like they're on type thing. I think that really kind of shows the blending and where music was in the mid-aughts at the time. And it's in hindsight really good. Like I like Human After All for what it is. There's not many tracks on there that I would revisit often, with the exception of the song Make Love. I think that is such a powerful sound, like just powerful tune that you can literally throw on and anyone would love. It speaks to the it's a testament to like their commitment to like simplicity and quality within melody, if that makes sense. It's like there's probably 4 chords in the whole song, and it is 7 minutes long, and just like it is exquisite. It's an exquisite tune.
Technologic, I full on do not like this album. It's the only one I can say that of theirs about. Technologic is amazing though. I love that song. I believe they directed the video too. I'm trying to think if that was the first one they directed as well. It was really good, and I like The Prime Time of Your Life. But other than that, I'm not really too into it. I feel like this, for some reason, had a lot, like there was a lot of the same kind of like vitriol, not to this extent, that people tried to levy at Random Access Memory, and I never really thought that that was fair because, and also like I think when you're putting out an album, listen, if you're them putting out, you, and not every album you put out can be like one of the most influential, you know, in music. So like you're gonna have missteps at some point.
Yep, there's easily their misstep album.
Yeah, this is what I would say this is the one.
So you'd say, like, I would say like Robot Rock is probably in my top 5 Daft Punk songs.
That's not a bad song.
And that's yeah. So I think there's, I don't know, I like Human After All.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
I guess if we have to, you know, put one album under, it's gonna be that album. Why do you think Random Access Memories got so much hate though?
It's my thing with Random Access Memory that I think people don't get it, to be honest with you. I think like that's the level, like every album you make, as I said, every album you make can't be among the most influential of all time, like Homework and Discovery. So I mean, if you're judging them by those standards, then you're going to be set up for failure all the time. I mean, I really like this album, whereas I don't really like Human After All. I mean, but you know, Random Access Memory was like this meta exploration of like the roots of dance music. Like Giorgio was so good. We got Niles Rodgers on this. Like it's really exploring where it came from, like disco and like 70s pop roots, especially for them as, you know, standard bearers of house and stuff like that, and moving it in, helping move it into the mainstream. Like it makes sense that they do like kind of a disco sounding, you know, record at times, because like that's the roots of the music. And then like Giorgio with the whole synthesizer thing and talking about that, like I was like, okay, this is really good. I mean, I was listening to it earlier today as well, and I really enjoyed listening to it again.
Yeah, I still don't know why it gets the hate that it did. Like I loved it when it came out. I still love it. I think it's a pretty important album of last decade. I remember when like the first reveal happened, and because I was extremely online at this point, and I think they revealed it on Saturday Night Live. Like Random Access Memories just came with the kind of the refrain from the first single, Get Lucky, and that was the big news of the start of the year. And then the single would drop with, you know, Pharrell Williams singing and Nile Rodgers, who I believe is, you know, contributed to that song for sure. Lose Yourself to Dance, and maybe 2 others. I actually read that he pumped out the whole, like his whole contribution to the album in like a day.
That's crazy.
Nile Rodgers is an assassin. Like this guy he's a legend.
Absolute legend. We owe a ton of How Pop Sounds today to his band's work and him. But yeah, like I think you know, as Kyle was mentioning, like Random Access Memories is clearly their session musician, studio sounding, expensive sounding, live instrumentation take on the origins and currency of dance music from a band that is comprised of like robots. So I think there was a lot kind of playing at the time for them to tap in the past and to really like breathe some life back into the dance floor, especially with the song Get Lucky. You know, I mean, they played the fuck out of that song when it came out, and to be honest, I don't really care for it nearly as much as I do for One More Time. Like, to be clear, I think One More Time is going to be looked back on as a song like the Isley Brothers' Twist and Shout. Like, it's a song that's going to kind of come with humanity when everything else leaves the 90s and 2000s. Like, our grandkids are going to listen to that song when we're 80 at our 80th or 90th birthday and be like, oh, this was dope. And I think that song's going to be around forever. It's just a timeless classic. Like, I mean that honestly. It is a timeless song. You know, I feel like there are probably people who think that about Get Lucky. To me, it's not quite as universal. Still a phenomenal pop song. But with Random Access Memories, you know, it was like Daft Punk's swan song to so many legends. I mean, good Lord, like Paul Williams is on there, Giorgio Moroder. The fact that they were tapping people like, you know, Julian Casablancas which is so far left, like the fucking stroke singer is doing a tune and he has like auto tune going. Like it's actually really, really amazing that the breadth of these guys' range could go that far, pull them in and make sense, to say nothing of like Panda Bear from Animal Collective. Great art pop indie band. We'll
so
talk
good.
about them one day, Kyle. Animal Collective is an amazing
It's
band.
so good.
But the fact that they pull Panda Bear, because he famously had one of his he's a very reclusive artist himself, but had one of his press photos of him wearing a fucking Daft Punk t-shirt that probably started the conversation. And to have like so many people, who else is on that? Todd Edwards. I mean, he was on saying Face to Face on Discovery. Like these guys were really kind of showcasing a departure from the essence of Daft Punk, which was rack of synthesizers, and showing that, hey, we'll go in like the biggest studios in the world and pull out something that you can't help but love. And I think they did succeed.
Going back to that point about just how immaculately it's recorded, like the guitars on
the album sounds expensive as shit.
It fucking, yeah, it definitely sounds like you're trying to have nice things. Like it's the guitar, like the guitar miking is just so on point. Everything's compressed perfectly. It's not over compressed. It's just beautiful. And if you're, I'm trying to remember. I think. Oh, sorry. We were talking about Dr. Dre, and we were talking about the first Chronic album and how well the live instruments are recorded on that. This is another example. If I was to be like, you want to hear an immaculately recorded album? This is it. Just listen to this. Do whatever they're doing on the microphone with miking in terms of distancing, compression, all this kind of shit is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I think I would blame Pharrell Williams' like ubiquity for people kind of not liking the album as much as they should, because like those two, like Get Lucky.
Oh, that man was going on his run that year.
Yeah, like it was, you just could not escape him. He was just like
him and his hat.
Hits.
It was everywhere.
And didn't they do some stuff on, was it Pharrell's album or like a soundtrack to like a animated movie or something?
They did a song on Pharrell's album Girl called Gust of Wind.
Yes, Gust of Wind.
That's right.
Yep, and to be fair, that is a phenomenal Pharrell Williams pop album. Like that is a great album. I love it. There's a song with Pharrell and Alicia Keys on that album. I can't remember the song title, but it's outstandingly good. But Cobes, like as you were saying, like Pharrell was just inescapable.
So like we're getting towards like the end of their tenure, kind of in this like 2013 to 2016 period. We're talking about their work with Pharrell. We've talked about Yeezus. And then we come up to The Weeknd, who, had been on a meteoric rise. Obviously, one of the biggest pop acts right now. And he
played a little show called the Super Bowl recently.
Yep.
A little tiny one.
Yeah.
Didn't cost him $7 million out of his pocket or anything.
Yeah. So there's a few special effects, some explosions, fireworks.
Yeah, you could do that at home.
I was proud of that
same
shit.
Thing as Mod Club show.
I was so proud of that. Yeah, the Mod Club show. I was so proud of that shit. I'm like, you know what, man? This guy's just emptying his own money into this. I love it.
So, like, for him to get there, we also have to stop at Starboy, which I think was, to me, his best crossover album. And I think what
Agreed.
made him cemented in pop. And I think Daft Punk were a big part of that. So why do you think The Weeknd went with Daft Punk for that album?
I think Abel has said in the past that he is a major fan of Daft Punk even before their collaboration. I think artists like The Weeknd, who add an aura of mystique and anonymity behind their artistry, owe a lot to that whole swag. To be honest, we kind of take it for granted, or it doesn't faze us the way it kind of did in 2001 to have almost anonymous artists put out like celebrated works of art. We have people like the late MF Doom, rest in peace, who like had like, oh, that was their thing. I do think that Daft Punk was responsible for a large part of that wave. And yeah, to your point, like if we follow The Weeknd's rise, starting off as a semi-anonymous, what do you call it, like R&B, Toronto sound, artist who was not a performer when he came out. And I think you guys were saying the Mod Club show, but to have him go through 3 pretty celebrated mixtapes that quite quickly get him put on the map, to dropping a very forgettable, I don't know if it was his like debut, but like Kissland. When that came out, it was like, oh, he could go either way. To be brought back with a massive single like Starboy is pretty crazy, especially given the context of like, you know, Daft Punk being like superstars and doing a song like this with The Weeknd. It very much, to like from my standpoint at least, very much elevated him and crossed him over into the top 40.
If you're The Weeknd, you can kind of just look at Kanye West and be like, what does working with this guy do? You know, working with these guys do. And he saw kind of how, I mean, what I like about The Weeknd is, and especially in this music climate, especially, it's like collaboration is everything. And your ability to collaborate with people, it really kind of denotes how successful you're going to be. And, you know, Kanye West, despite having a massive ego, doesn't have an ego for that kind of thing. He's like, let's bring these guys in. They can make me better. I think The Weeknd sees that and is like, I think that can be applied to what I'm doing, just in that more of a, in kind of a less like industrial influenced like kind of sound, and more in a like darker European pop like sense, addition of dance elements. And I think it was really good because, first of all, the track Starboy is incredible. I love that album. And you know what? Abel's smart. He knows what happens, and he knows, how to kind of move the needle. And with them, he was able to do it. And I think it was a deft move.
Would you say it's a daft move?
I would say it was the opposite of a daft move, but yes, it's a daft move, if you will.
Do we prefer Starboy or I Feel It Coming?
Starboy.
I like Starboy a lot, man.
The motherfucking Starboy.
Yeah, it's
come on.
Yeah,
it's
the video
so
for that
good.
is amazing as well.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, it's just like, I think it's his best track, to be honest with you. Just the way it's able to go from like sparse to like more intense and crescendoing at the end, and it's done like, it's just immaculately put together. It's really good. It's good for the club. It's good for headphones. It's good for driving. What more do you want?
So between Pharrell, Kanye, and The Weeknd, what collabs did we think fit the best?
I think Kanye, to be honest. I think Kanye's a borrowing of Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger during graduation.
I feel like that set the tone for Graduation almost. Like I feel like it kind of like
agreed.
colored the big poppy and the bright notes to it.
Agreed. It was his it was Kanye making like the fucking statement on pop, like he won. He beat out baggy jeans.
Yeah.
Thank God for that.
Yeah. He beat 50 Cent to a pulp. No, I'm just kidding. But he really just said like fuck the world type thing. And to have like Daft Punk join him on live TV playing their like, RGB like MIDI controller and shit was like pretty crazy in hindsight. That was like their first ever TV appearance. And I think that their later work together on Yeezus really at the time was jarring and just super cool. Like I wish I could go back to like 2013 and just feel again that feeling of like the rollout and all these like polarizing Kanye West songs come out, and to know people like Daft Punk were on the boards for them is just so crazy.
Yeah, I think Yeezus is such a special moment in time, and like Kanye being in Paris for all these sessions and then flying like King Louis and like Chief Keef to Paris to do this album was just like something else completely.
I also think was Stronger. I mean, like we recorded half a Kanye West episode just about like his stadium ambitions and him bringing hip hop to that stadium grandeur to hip hop. And I think like Stronger is the conduit for that. That's the tip of the spear for that. That's the song that is so big that it has to be. I mean, he even says it is like Stronger has to be on a big stage in a stadium, and they're very much part of that. And then Yeezus, and just I remember the SNL performance, just so sick. And I just think like them, like those two working together, you're taking one of the most influential artists of all time and then pairing him with two of the other most influential artists of all time, who have dictated kind of how we interpret pop music and what we listen to in pop music and like the sonic qualities of pop music today. And so, I mean, I really think you can't match that. I don't think Pharrell and The Weeknd have the smoke for that.
Yeah, I think that kind of summarizes it. I think it's kind of like these kind of two big cultural forces meeting in the middle. And I think there's something special about the way that Daft Punk was able to embrace, you know, people that sampled them. Like I remember reading that they, you know, really were honored by Touch It and by Busta Rhymes and really ended up liking that, even though like it was so different for, you know, what they had originally done. So I think that the fact that they were willing to embrace people, you know, playing in their world and you know, were going to go on shows with Kanye and, you know, do appearances and stuff like that was really, really cool. So where do you guys think Daft Punk sits on these all-time great lists? Like, where would you put them?
It's hard to say because we're still kind of like reeling from the crater that they left on the earth, you know, like they just kind of announced their end on Monday. But I do think they won in every sense of the word, you know. They maintained their private lives while working with the biggest artists on the planet and left memorable projects from their live show to their studio albums to their singles. You know, I actually was in the back of my mind praying they would come out for the Super Bowl. I thought that would have been just obscene. But I think they won, you know. They left on their own terms. I don't think this is the end of Thomas and Guy-Man. I think it is the end of Daft Punk. Whether I'm wrong and they come back for a tour one more time, I think I think they have absolutely cemented themselves as one of the most important pop acts of the last 50 years. And I think that they helped ingrain a sound that is very timely, but also timeless, and about that swing and about that universal quality of dancing and expressing yourself with your body in a context of, you know, euphoria and happiness and love that sadly people sometimes don't quite get. And when you think about who they tapped over the years, it's just like these guys knew from the jump their taste level was just out of this world. And you know, like they had like a compilation remix album, Daft Club, and like even back then they had like, you know, Slum Village, J Dilla, and the Neptunes doing flips on their songs. And this is back in this came out after Discovery, I think, like 2004 or something. Like these guys absolutely knew what time it was when it came to like the bigger context of what they were doing, which wasn't just relegated to like French house. And I think they'll be remembered quite fondly.
I'll ask a very simple question. If you remove them from the musical, pop music lexicon, does pop music sound the same?
No question, no.
Then they are among the most influential artists of all time. Like, there's very few artists that you can say that about, especially dance artists too. I mean, again, Primal Scream, Screamadelica, Acid House of the Masses, Trip Hop, Massive Attack, Blue Lines, another very influential album, Chemical Brothers, Dig Your Own Hole, DJ Shadow, Introducing, but these are blips, right? Like, they have consistently put that out there, interpreted all that music, not in from a genre sense, and just brought it together, blended it, injected it into popular music, and they have very casually become one of the most influential artists of all time. I don't think you can argue that. I would say, you know, some people don't like it when you're using highfalutin language like that. I think that it's spot on, and I don't really think that's an argument at this point. And I think maybe they knew that as well. And I mean, at the end of the day, look what they've given. I think that 28 years is a long time. There'll never be another Daft Punk. There'll be someone who is maybe channeling the same ideas and with the same, you know, But
we've seen it already.
Absolutely.
We've seen the duo like pop duo dance act already. Mastercraft.
Yeah, I think more from like influence, you know, like in terms of like generational artists. So I mean, like think about when we were talking about when we got into these. Like I'm talking about high school. I'm talking about like grade 8 stuff. You know what I mean? And you're talking about like how, you know, the way they packaged their music and the music itself, how it influenced you and, you know, kind of made you feel it was okay to be a nerd. You know what I mean? Which is, when you're a nerd, is always appreciated. The nerds won,
and you hate to see
exactly. You hate to see it, but I just, their contributions are overwhelming, and it can't be argued.
Yeah, I think there's not really an argument for their place in the pantheon of music, duos of dance music, house music, their contributions to pop. They are, you know, without a doubt, you know, legends. They're on whatever Mount Rushmore you want to make for those genres. Do you guys think we'll see their names, credits on more pop music going forward, or do you think they're going to take an actual break?
I think so. I think we're going to hear them on different projects. You know, they've had kind of side acts. Thomas was part of a group called Stardust that did a song called Music Sounds Better Than You. The Chaka Khan sampled amazing tune. Pretty sure it's on Grand Theft Auto 5. Like, these guys are out here type thing. You may not know where they are, or you may not see them, but I think we haven't heard the last of like Thomas and Guy-Man. Perhaps we've heard the last of Daft Punk, unless they go on another tour one more time. But I really think oh, absolutely. Yeah. You heard it here first. That's the reunion tour name. I just think you don't remain in an act for 30 years and just put that away and go like make puzzles for the rest of your life. I don't know if you continue to put albums out as an artist, but I'm pretty sure the way they presented themselves over the years and the way they deliberately separated the people from the project was a big like FU to the concept of celebrity. And I think their music and their legacy is better off because of it.
Yeah.
I think you summed it up. On that note, I want to say, Eric, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem.
Where can people check out your work?
You can follow me on the Twitter if you want to hear more of my rants. Otherwise, still debating writing. I was thinking, after these guys said goodbye on Monday, well, the first thing I did immediately was buy Random Access Memories and Human After All on vinyl. Good thing I did too, because they sold out instantly. I went straight to Discogs. No joke. And
good call. It's a good call.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have all their albums now. I'm just waiting for them to come in the mail. But I'm thinking about writing more about these guys because it was I really think it's an end of an era. And I really appreciate the invitation to come rap about Daft Punk. This has been really fun.
Great. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, I couldn't have done it without you. So join us next time when we talk about whatever we talk about.